Why, when you're dealing with the multiverse, does every universe have the same art style? Hey internet, how many Marvels do you think are in this jar? So Marvel made a show called What If, and I'm going to complain about it. I haven't watched all of What If, and some people might say I should watch the entirety of the show before I complain about it. And you know what I have to say to those people? Like and subscribe. Anyways, I don't have to watch the entire show to levy this criticism, because you could literally see it from the first trailer. But before I get too ahead of myself, I do want to make something clear. I'm kind of a Marvel shill. There have been few Marvel or honestly comic book adaptations that I haven't gotten some amount of enjoyment out of. No, not you, Secret Invasion. You're a disappointment, and I would know. These days, a lot of people like to crap all over Marvel. And honestly, if that's your thing, I am not here to kink shame. I too have had my fair share of complaints, but I overall enjoy the majority of this stuff. So now that that's all out of the way, what is the point of this video? Well, the point is, why does everything in Marvel What If look the same? Why, when you're dealing with the multiverse, does every universe have the same art style? Now, I think I probably know why, but before I get into that, let's go over what If is for those who might not know. Listen, I know you probably don't want the annoying explainer part of the video, but it's important. Okay? Jeez. So back in 2019, there was a Disney Investor Day presentation. It was actually right before Endgame released. So the presentation was on April 11th, and Endgame released April 26th, 2019. But what is important here is that What If was announced. And honestly, at the time, it was a pretty exciting idea. Up until then, the MCU had really been contained, separated from anything that was going on TV, and most definitely separated from anything that was going on in any other universe. The show eventually premiered on August 11th, 2021. It was the fourth Marvel show to hit streaming. Well, on the Disney Plus end of things anyways. So before What If came out, there were little teases here and there in WandaVision and quite a bit of explanation in Loki Season 1 of what the multiverse was, but What If was supposed to be the show to really show off the multiverse. And honestly, the first season I really loved. I don't want to go into too many spoilers here, because that's not necessarily what this video is about, but the way everything came together in the end was really cool, and I will say Ultron is awesome. Now, I do want to show this side by side, because sometimes an image says 1,000 words, and I think that this really does explain what's going on with the art style of the What If series. This is a picture of the Collector, with his character model from the What If show next to him, and I think this was the goal. Animated, but familiar. They tried really hard to land on an art style that would hopefully be an easy transition for their casual audience. Now, if that's what they were going for, then I think they did a pretty good job pulling it off. And I guess my problem with it is I don't think that that's what they should have been going for. I mentioned earlier that this was announced back in 2019. Well, later that year, Spider-Verse came out. And the first trailer for Spider-Verse came out back in like 2017. Now, from what I could find, production on the What If series started in like 2018, but it really ramped up in 2019 up until the release. And it's just wild to me that you see the Spider-Verse movie come out and it kind of carves a path. I feel like you have some amount of time to course correct. I mean, I understand animation takes a long time and they couldn't course correct for season 1, but they just never decided to go down that path. I mean, even whenever they got to Marvel Zombies, it doesn't seem like they changed that art style at all. And obviously it was never their intention to change that style, but I think that was the wrong decision. You know, there were so many options of what this show could have been. And in some ways, I think we got like the most middle of the road option. It makes you wonder if they just picked this style and stuck with it because it was cheaper to animate. Now, it's also easy after the fact of something being created to go in and be like, I would have done this better, or I would have done that better. But you're basically presenting an anthology show And What If could have been a show that went up against Love, Death, and Robots, or Secret Level, or even something like Star Wars Visions. Now, I know Lucasfilm and Marvel definitely are not working in the same studio, technically, but what a weird situation where you have Disney owning both Star Wars and Marvel, and Star Wars puts out basically what If should have looked like? I don't know. It's weird. I think it's weird. Now, like I said, it's not like the art style they landed on is awful or anything like that. Just like majority of animated projects, there's moments that it kind of falls flat, but then there's also moments where it looks really awesome. I think it works okay. It's just weird because I feel like they could have been doing so much more with the concept. Like, let's say they didn't want to do some sprawling art house project. There were other options outside of what they did that I feel would have given us more of a Spider-Verse vibe, and also they could have paid a ton of homage to their past, kind of like they're doing now with like all the Fox X-Men stuff. Like, we all know now that they had a spin-off series with Marvel Zombies. That series literally picks up from the episode that you see in the What If show. But if What If had a diversity of styles, what would have stopped them to have a prequel episode to X-Men 97? And not only X-Men 97, I mean, Marvel has a history of animated properties going all the way back to the 1960s. Can you guess the name of the first Marvel animated series? I'll give you a hint. There are less than 5 Marvels in the jar. Anyways, here's a word from our sponsor. Just kidding, it's me again. Hey, do you wear clothes? If the answer's yes, then do I have some news for you. I drew some pictures and then I uploaded them to Redbubble, and now they're clothes. Clothes that you can buy. So head on over to Redbubble and buy some clothes. Like this Zip the Moon Rat parody shirt. Or these Marvel comic parody shirts. I really like parody shirts. So head on over to Redbubble and buy some clothes. Hey Internet, welcome back. So starting with the Marvel superheroes back in 1966, up until the release of What If, Marvel had 32 animated series that they could have been pulling from the entire time. Now, I'm not saying that you have to do an episode for every single one of these series, but the 1960s through the 80s had kind of a distinct style for most of the Marvel properties. And then once you hit the 90s, you obviously have a whole universe there to pick and choose from. But even the early 2000s till now, there are quite a few great shows that could have gotten an episode in the What If series. Or maybe take a different approach. There are 7 of these series that have cliffhanger endings. Spider-Man the Animated Series ends with Spider-Man searching for Mary Jane across the multiverse. The Silver Surfer Animated Series ends with Thanos, Galactus, and Eternity threads still unresolved. Spider-Man Unlimited ends mid-story with the Counter-Earth Rebellion unresolved. Avengers United We Stand, the final episode teases Kang as a new big bad, and that's unresolved. The Spectacular Spider-Man ends with Green Goblin escaping, and Gwen and MJ's arcs are left hanging. Wolverine and the X-Men ends with a massive reveal of Apocalypse as Season 2's villain, but the show was cancelled. Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, ends with Galactus arriving on Earth, never resolved. And one show that I counted that didn't actually come out was Pride of the X-Men. It was just a pilot. It would be really fun to maybe continue on that pilot, even if just for one episode. So there you have it. A lesson in how to take a silly complaint and turn it into a nearly 10-minute YouTube video. And at the end of the day, all is well that ends well. Marvel What If does have its fan base, as does Marvel Zombies. So I can't say the art style didn't work for them, even if it's not necessarily what I would have done with the show or what I would have liked to see done with the show. But now, on to the most important part of this video. Did you guess 3? Congratulations, you're correct. Thanks for watching.